The fantasy baseball season is a grind filled with ups and downs and a little bit in between, and this season is no different. Today, we're taking a look at players who had amazing Aprils, shitty Mays, the inverse, and how it affects your team this season.
It's about that time.
Stoned on Sports.
How's it going, everybody? You are tuned into the Stoned on Sports podcast, Fantasy Baseball Edition. My name is Matt. Got the awesome co-host Kyle here with me as always. And if you haven't already, drop that like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. The other day, we were kind of playing around on StatCast and looking at the rolling xwOBA over the past 100 plate appearances, and that kind of gave us the idea for today's video. Some players started off amazing in April and have cooled off in May, and others had a slow start but have really heated up. And this is going to be a fun conversation. Kyle, how the hell you doing, buddy?
Super. Been a long holiday weekend. A little tired, but getting through it, so to speak.
Beautiful.
Yeah. How about you?
Not too bad, man. Not too bad. What do you say we dive into this?
Yeah, for sure. So basically, yeah, who's hot and who's not right now? First guy I'm going to start with is somebody we all know, power slugger. That's right. I'm talking about Aaron Judge, outfielder with the New York Yankees. From May 4th to May 5th, he's gained 277 in his xwOBA. Just amazing. He's been the number one outfielder in fantasy during that time period. In those 20 games, he's batted .427, 12 doubles, 11 homers, 18 walks with a 1634 OPS. That's insane. He recorded in those 20 games, he recorded at least one hit in 17 of them. And in 8 of those 17, multi-hit efforts. And if you remember, like Matt said at the top of the hour, he's one of these guys that started off kind of slow, just batted 197 through the first 33 games of the year, which is a 725 OPS. So he's really come alive here in the month of May. For the season, he's got 18 doubles, 17 home runs, 39 ribbies, almost the same amount of runs scored as well, 37, a couple stolen bases. Strikeout rate, 24.9. It's a below average. He's in the bottom 27% in the league, but he has improved it nicely, 3.5% year over year. So any improvements like that, especially with a power slugger like him, strikeouts are going to happen. So any improvement is going to be welcomed. Walk rate, super excellent at 17.6%. He's tops in the league, top 1% in the league. StatCast, he's top 10% or better in most rankings. It's a pretty red page. Whiff rate is very below average at 32.9. That puts him in the bottom 10% of hitters in the league, but he's also improved that 3.7% year over year. And like I mentioned, power slugger like him, there's going to be, some swing and miss and a below average strikeout rate generally. We know he obliterates baseballs, right? But the hard hit rate, still excellent, is 2% worse than last year. And looking deeper in some of the data, he's hitting less fly balls than last year while hitting more line drives and ground balls. The less fly balls, it could be caused by him. He's pulling the ball a lot less this year, 6.5% less. And so he is not sending many balls. He's sending more balls to opposite field than ever, more than 7.5% in his career. Something we haven't talked about here before, flares, burners. They're the second best batted ball types for hits behind barrels. They're two distinct batted balls, but they have they produce similar or dissimilar results, I should say. Burners have high exit velocities, lower launch angles, so like a blistered ground ball. Flares have lower exit velocities, higher launch angles. Think of like a bloop that falls in the shallow outfield there between two fielders. His flare burner percentage is very low at 13.8. It's 8.3% less than last season, and 10% worse than league average. And his under percentage, not so great either. It's 26.1, a lot higher than his career norm of 19.5. So what's this tell us? He's having a great season. Obviously, it started slow. It's gotten great. The counting stats are there. It's what you want to see. but he can be even better. And I believe he will, especially with all the protection he has around him in that Yankees lineup. They're a great team this year. Yeah. Any thoughts on Judge?
I always find it interesting he carries that massive walk rate despite his just enormous strike zone.
Right.
Like you would think it wouldn't be too tall a task to be able to throw a ball consistently in there, but you don't want to get too much of the zone or he's going to send the ball to friggin' New Jersey or something.
Right.
But he is an absolute monster.
He is fantasy stud, All right, next guy. This guy's definitely not the higher average hitter that he was earlier in his career, but he's a pretty good buy low candidate in fantasy who will also continue to get plenty of RBI opportunities in a potent Phillies lineup. We're talking about Nick Castellanos with the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yeah, this dude is something else this year, and for a good part of the year, I don't think anyone can say that he wasn't a disappointment. We go back to May 3rd. Right through 33 games, he was hitting just 180 with an on base under 25%, 2 home runs. He'd only driven in 9, walked 10 times, and had 34 strikeouts. He was the number 90 or 199 overall hitter in Yahoo points leagues during that time frame, and the number 101 outfielder. Now, you'll say, is that bad? Let me frame that a different way for you. If you were in a 10-team league where you rostered or started 10 outfielders, he still wouldn't have been a starting outfielder. That's how bad he was. Since then, though, 21 games, he's hitting 235. The on base is up over 30%. We're seeing a little bit more power, 4 home runs. He's chipped in a few doubles as well. He's cut down on the strikeouts and he's walking a little bit more too. In that time frame, he's the number 24 overall hitter and the number 9 outfielder. Now, the dude's still just barely hitting over the Mendoza line on the season, and his BABIP is damn low at just 235. He's a low to mid 300s guy the last 3 seasons, and his career average BABIP is 327. So, there's, we could be looking at 100 points a rebound. I think 70 points would be a little bit better estimation. So there is some bad luck there, but his quality of contact has also been lacking this season. I think it's going to come up, though. And bear in mind, he's not someone who has ever had really crazy, exit velocity or hard hit numbers, but he's been a better than average kind of guy. What he has excelled at, though, is maximizing his launch angle, the sweet spot. It's between 8 and 32 degrees launch angle, but there's been some regression there over the past 3 seasons, but he's still damn good there. And really, his power production is a result of his fly ball and pull rates. He's somebody with a below average hit tool. He's never had a season with a contact rate above league average. And this year he's sitting at just 69.1%. He's also got slightly below average plate discipline. He is somebody who is an incredibly free swinger. He is a bottom of the barrel in terms of chase rate and whiff rate. And his outside the zone contact rate sits at 47.7%. That's the 7th worst in baseball. 17.6% swinging strike rate. 3rd worst in baseball. He has been getting killed by off speed and breaking pitches this season. He's hitting just a combined 128 against them, and he is especially vulnerable low and away. 4 of his home runs and 2 of his doubles have been hit to the pull side. None of those have been low and away. And it's harder to pull a ball that's low and away and hit it with authority because as you swing through, you need to keep your back shoulder low, and that'll change the natural plane of the bat to meet the ball out in front of the plate. If you bring that back shoulder up, that's how you end up hitting over top of the ball and hitting these little grounders to second base or shortstop with absolutely nothing on them. But when it comes to fastballs, we're talking about a different story. He's hitting 302 with a 318 expected average against them. And this dude is cemented in the middle of, or we'll call it middle third, one of the best lineups in baseball. And you might be thinking, Matt, you're kind of shitting on a dude who is doing well-ish recently, but I think it's important that we know who he is. I think he's still got a great chance for 20 home runs and to drive in 80. He's not going to keep this top 10 outfielder pace, but I think he'll be, a top 30 to 40 option here as the season goes on.
Agreed.
So we've got another top 10 option at the outfield position, and this guy is now being talked about as a possible replacement for Ronald Acuna since he went down, and he's doing it much differently than Nick Castellanos has been doing it. Kyle, why don't you part the Red Sea that is Brent Rooker's StatCast profile and lead us to the salvation he can bring our teams?
Right. So Matt mentioned Brent Rooker on a bad athletics team, but he's having a very good May. He's outfielder 4 in fantasy in the month of May with an xWOBA gain of over 100. Rookie, he's a rookie. Started slow. This year, just hitting 206, 5 homers, 13 ribbies, 31 strikeouts in March, April. But as I mentioned, May came and he caught fire. Got 10 doubles. Dude had 20 all of last year in 137 games. So he's on pace to smash that. 11 home runs, too. He had 30 last year. And he's on pace to match that. 34 ribbies, 23 runs is a little bit lower. I think he'd have more runs scored on a better team. But what are you going to do? He's on the Athletics. He's slashing 286, 368, 565 on the season. All right, strikeout rate. It's horrible. Okay. It's 32.8. He's in the basement cellar. He has the 8th worst strikeout percentage in the majors. Only 7 guys are worse than him. I don't see it improving much either, as he was just a 10th of a point better last year. The walk rate is good. It's 10-3, top 30% in the league. When the season started, he was pretty much just DHing. But once the calendar turned to May, you did see him have some more time in the outfield to keep his bat in the lineup, which you love for fantasy. Among hitters with 770 plate appearances, he's 20th out of 143 and on base, 7th in slugging, tied for 7th with 5 others in home runs. His StatCast shows a ton of red. He's a smasher of baseballs. He ranks in the top 16% in the majors in exit velo, top 9% in max exit velo, and top 3% in slugging. He's also in the 84th percentile in hard hit rate and 90th in barrels. His contact numbers have improved too. He's making some nice gains this year. Now, this is the question. Is he for real, or is he just another hot power hitter who's going to disappear soon? I think there's some concerns there. This hot stretch is really nothing more than another streak from a power hitter. Few reasons, 3 of them here. His strikeout rate is really going to make him virtually unusable at some times, and hitting in a weak A's lineup doesn't help either. His BABIP during the last 20 games is 462. That's insane. He's leading all qualified hitters in BABIP in the last 20 games. I thought of 184 hitters, so not a small sample. That is not sustainable, right? He's a career 240 hitter. He is not going to hit like that the rest of the way. Number 3, since I mentioned rest of the way, last season, he started out hot in April. He hit 353, 9 homers, 22 RBIs, 16 strikeouts with an OPS of 1245 in 22 games. And then May and June came, and he hit 198 in May, 191 in June. Over the final 115 games of the season, he hit just 228 while striking out over 35% of the time. This month's outbreak will not last. Here's what you need to know. If you have him on your roster, now is the best time to trade him or just ride out this hot streak. If he isn't on your roster and he's available in your league and you need a power boost, sure, he'll give you what you need, but you should make sure that your squad has, the proper depth for the inevitable cold stretch, because he will go cold.
Yeah, I think if he gets moved to Atlanta, I think some of that could change, because right now in Oakland, there is no protection.
Sure.
What reason do they have to give him anything to hit?
Yep.
But if you put him in that Atlanta lineup, all of a sudden he's going to be seeing more fastballs and more stuff catching a bigger part of the plate.
Absolutely. Next up. So this guy had a slow start to the year, pretty understanding. He had a sports hernia surgery in the offseason, but this guy is starting to hit his stride at the plate for the defending World Series champion. We're talking about Corey Seager with the Rangers. Matt?
Yeah, and first off, I was somebody who proudly rostered Corey Seager last year during his absolutely amazing season. But if you were expecting a repeat of that, you were going to have a bad time. And guess what? You learned that early on that it was not going to happen.
Yep.
Imagine this. You wake up May 3rd and you see that after 29 games played, he's hitting 219 with a 305 on base and a 594 OPS. He's only gone yard twice, just smacked a couple doubles, has less than 10 RBIs, only scored 12 runs, and he'd struck out 22 times. People were panicking. They're saying, should we drop him? Should we trade him? And what did Matt say? Matt said, slow your roll, right? We know who this guy is. In the 20 games since then, he's hitting over 300 with an over 400 on base and an almost 700 slug. He's gone yard 9 times, driven in 16, scored 13 more, and has just 3 more strikeouts than walks. Was that good? Why don't we put it into context? He's been the number 8 overall hitter and the number 2 shortstop. And despite amazing quality of contact during that stretch, and by amazing, I mean a hard hit rate approaching 60%, a barrel rate approaching 25%, and an exit velocity just under 94 miles an hour, he had just a 288 BABIP in that stretch. And his BABIP on the season is sitting at just 268, which is 50 points below his career average. It's just a matter of time with him. His season-long quality of contact data is looking good as well. Looking at his batted ball data, both his fly ball rate and his pull rate are up over 42% over the past few weeks. Now, that mirrors a career upswing we've seen from him over the past few years, but it's likely going to come down a little bit. I do expect the overall increase to continue, though. And we're talking about a dude who only 3 of his home runs haven't been pulled so far this season, and all 3 of them have been in the past couple weeks. His plate discipline, well above average, not only in terms of his 11.9% walk rate and 17.4% strikeout rate, but his chase rate's down 4 points from last season, and his overall contact rate is up to just under 80%. He's somebody he's been more selective at the plate. His swing rate is down a little bit, as is his zone swing rate, and we see a corresponding spike in his called strike rate. He's somebody who lays off strikes and more generally pitches he can't do anything with. Yes, a slider at the knees on the black on the outside is a strike, and it's a fantastic pitch. But what the hell are you going to do with that? Not a damn thing. You foul it off and you wait for the next one. He is a dude who is a superb player in a superb offense in an amazing offensive park. Just remember, health with him, it's always going to be a concern, but everybody remembers the results from last year, but don't realize it was in just 119 games. And this dude has just 1 season over 140 games since 2017. Ride the hot streak. There's going to be more of them as the season goes on and as everything heats up. And yes, I get it. Hitting on the whole across Major League Baseball is down, but there are a few spots where you know that regardless of the overall hitting environment, you're going to get production. And the top and middle of that Texas Rangers lineup is one of those places.
For sure. I think we got James in the chat here. He's got a quick question. Roto League. He has Gunnar, Austin Riley, Ramirez, Seager, and 2 second basemen, Albies and Altuve. Often have to bench one of them. Would you trade one for a starting pitcher or hold for injury protection?
So I know Albies just got back from, a
broken
toe a couple of weeks ago.
And
Altuve, who we're actually going to be talking about here a little bit later. So look at James with the sly little lead in there. He's been pretty consistent in terms of staying on the field over, essentially the course of his career. However, 2 of the past 4 years, he's failed to reach 140 games played. I don't have a problem moving one of them.
What about Altuve's, 34? Albies is younger, like 27, 26, 27.
He is. Of the 2, I'd rather have Albies. I think even with Acuna getting hurt, I think that's a little bit better offense there. And God, it's so hard not to hate Jose Altuve. It really is. But we have to make decisions with our head and not our heart, right? I think if you get the opportunity to sell high on somebody like Altuve, well, actually, he's been playing shitty, so you'd be selling a little bit low. But if you can get a decent return on him and have the opportunity to improve your team, I would absolutely do it. And then he mentions a little bit later on here that his first baseman is Josh Naylor.
He's been playing okay.
He's been playing okay. I don't want to overinvest in that Guardians offense, though. I think for a good part of the year, their offense, they've been playing a little bit over their head.
Yeah.
But Jose Ramirez has been absolutely amazing this year. I mean, just as he is every year. I would say, yeah, if you can move Altuve and get somebody to bite on him based on reputation and upgrade your team, go for it, James.
Heck yeah. Great question, James. Hope we helped you out. Got Supersonic in the chat as well. What's up, man? Glad you're here.
What's going on, brother?
Heck yeah.
So, Matt Chapman was hitting 204 as recently as May 7th, but has turned things around in a big way over the past couple of weeks. The number 14 hitter, number 3 third baseman. What's led to that reversal of fortune for him, Kyle?
Yeah, he is doing so much better. He's the number 4 third baseman in the month of May. Just started producing much higher level at the plate. Since May 4th, out of 184 qualified hitters, he's 58th in batting average, 33rd in on base, 35th in slugging, 5th in runs scored. He's tied for 10th in RBIs and tied for 6th in doubles. He's slashing 240, 311, 426 on the season, 737 OPS. So not great, but things are coming back. Strikeout rate is 23/7 below average, but better than it's better this year than last year and his career average. Walk rate 7.6. It's in the bottom 40% right now. It will get better. He's always been a 10% guy. He was last year, and his career rate is 10.4. So look for that to continue to get a little bit better. And dude is good at hitting balls very hard. In the last 7 seasons, he's consistently been in the top 8% or better. This year is 47% hard hit rate, still among the top 5th in baseball, but he is down almost 10% year over year on that. And his exit velocity of 92.5 is excellent, along with his bat speed, 76.6. That's fast. He swings his bat faster than some people drive a car. Swing and miss is not horrible either, considering, what kind of hitter he is. And his chase and his whiff rates are just about league average. And just like Aaron Judge this season, Chapman is pulling less balls to left field and sending a lot more to the opposite field, which generally in his career, it's the other way. Starting the season, he was batting 4th. That makes sense, as one would expect. But as he struggled, he was bounced around the 5, 6, 7 hole. But in the last 9 games, finds himself right back at cleanups. Once you start hitting better, you're going to get your spot back. I'm really impressed with his huge gains in the plate discipline department. He's an older player, he's a veteran. It's showing me that he's becoming even more patient. His contact in the zone is up 7.5%, and the contact when he chases, it's up almost 12% year over year. So he's using his experience to wait and get that pitch that he wants, that he can drive and get you some fantasy points. He's throwing first pitch strikes at a higher rate than last year, but he's swinging at first pitch strikes less than last year. And I think that's kind of what that tells us, is these things are turning around for him. If it doesn't turn around for him completely, at least you can play the hot hand with a guy that has 30 homer upside, right? I like him when he's doing there. The Giants are waking up a little bit offensively. Ever not expecting to be very good, but I'm impressed with Chapman so far. Almost drafted him this year.
Yeah, and he's one of those dudes. I mean, he hits the ball with such ferocity that I'm surprised his home run numbers haven't been higher.
Yeah. That could all happen. And he got a late start to the season, got signed late and all that. So it could be that, but he's a veteran guy. He knows what he needs to do. And I think he'll continue being a solid fantasy player. All right. Another we got a first baseman for you. This 25-year-old kind of came alive in recent weeks after a quiet start to the season. And, an uptick in power needs to still come back a little more, but the hits are starting to fall with frequency. We are talking about Vladimir Guerrero Jr., first baseman with the Toronto Blue Jays. Tell us how he has turned things around in May, Matt.
This dude is something else. And if you've rostered him over the past couple of years, you understand the frustration because damn 2021 certainly was a tease. 48 home runs, 111 RBIs, a 300, 400, 600 triple slash. Damn, that's something. His ass ain't sniffed 40 home runs since, and he hit 32 in 2022, and that's the closest he's got. This year, he's only on pace for 15.
Yeah.
But over the past few weeks, he's had a nice little turnaround from earlier in the year. 419 average, a 494 on base with a 1,048 OPS, a couple home runs, 4 doubles, 14 RBIs, 13 runs, and 1 more walk than strikeout. But what's missing? It's the damn power, right? Across that time frame, he's a number 33 overall hitter, the number 3 first baseman. Again, he wasn't doing great before that, but this hot streak has raised his average 70 points, his on base 60 points, and his slugging by 70 points. And this dude, he hits the ball as anybody, or as hard as anybody in the league. His quality of contact is outstanding. He's in the top 2% in exit velocity and hard hit rate. His barrel rate, a little bit lower, but it's still top 20%. We're going to come back to that, though. Because of his hard contact, he's among the league leaders in his expected stats as well. And as we move down his StatCast chart, we get to LA sweet spot. And no, that doesn't mean that Los Angeles is a sweet spot to be. We're talking about that sweet spot launch angle between 8 and 32 degrees. Look, barrels can start as low as 8 degrees, depending on the exit velocity. Okay. His average launch angle this season, just 6.6 degrees.
Oof.
That's rough.
Yeah.
And when you combine that with his 48% ground ball rate, a fly ball rate under 20%, and a pull rate at 34, we see why, despite the hard hit data, there's a lack of home runs. This dude's exit velocity during this little hot streak is approaching 96 miles an hour with a launch angle of 1.6 degrees. Like, you got to be shitting me. That's essentially just hitting it flat in front of you. And even during 2021, when he had that outstanding season, it was only 9.4 degrees. But still, he's a good hitter with an above average contact rate. He's got good plate discipline. He's walking at a career high 12.7% rate. And despite a career high 17.9% strikeout rate, that's still well better than most. And look, the numbers are going to start to come back down. He's got a 468 BABIP since May 4th, and it's sitting at 359 on the season. I do think he's got a good shot to get on base around 36% of the time. He's going to produce runs, but the lack of home runs is going to continue to frustrate. And the stadium, after they did those renovations, certainly are not going to do him any favors either. I can't write him off as a power hitter because, again, the old Bill James adage, once a player demonstrates a skill, he owns it. He has the skill to hit 40 plus home runs every goddamn year, but just he cannot seem to harness all of the power and authority that he hits the ball with to hit that shit over the fencing that they've erected in the outfield to designate it a home run.
Yeah.
Now, look, points leagues, it's great because extra base hits mean extra points, right? But damn, at some point, we got to have the home runs to really get that elite level run production that you're looking for out of somebody who, one, you drafted as highly as you did, and number two, is playing a premium power position. Now, maybe you can let go of that thought process and say, all right, I don't give two shits where I get my power from as long as I get my power. But traditionally, your power hitters come from corner infield spots, corner outfield spots. So something's got to give. But at the end of the day, look, the dude's on fire. ride that shit while it's hot. When he starts to cool off, you're still going to get production there, just not at the level we've been seeing over the past 3 weeks.
Right. Excellent. Good stuff there, Matt.
It is.
Cold time.
It is. Now it's time to get a little bit chilly. And look, I wish I could give this dude's launch angle to Vlad, but that really wouldn't leave him with much in terms of positives. This dude was the 15th catcher off the board in drafts and somehow has managed to underperform even those low expectations. Kyle,
Yeah.
what the hell got us here?
Yeah. We're talking about Bo Naylor, catcher for the Guardians, brother of Josh Naylor that James just mentioned. They're both from Canada too. I didn't know that until a few weeks ago. But anyway, issue at hand. In the month of May, he's catcher number 26 in fantasy. Puke, right?
Gross.
You don't want that. He's lost 85 points in his ex-WOBA. In that same time frame, his batting average is just 159. That's 254 out of 274 hitters. Puke, garbage. On base is 257, 257th rank. Slugging's number 235. Run scored 218. RBI, you get the point, right? His walk rate is 4.3. It's disgusting, way below average. And the strikeout rate, 34%, the 19th worst in the month of May, with just one home run and a very ugly 32% hard hit rate. On the season, his StatCast is less than desirable. Expected stats of xWOBA, batting average, slugging, all bottom 2% or worse in the league. Just disgusting. There is some hard hitting to him. His hard hit rate, exit velo are above average on the year, and both are up year over the year, with his hard hit rate up a whopping 12% over last season. But his chase and whiff rates are very, very below average, especially his whiff rate. And it's not just one or two pitches that he has trouble with. He whiffs on it all like an a la carte special, all of it. He don't care. And even though his walk rate has been shitty in the month of May, he is still above average on the season. But with his strikeout, it's pretty invisible, right? That's all you see when you look at him, is that disgusting strikeout rate. And it's on the season 36.8, just atrocious. Do you know where that places him among hitters with at least 130 plate appearances? Third worst, behind Will Benson and Jose Siri of Tampa Bay. Last year, he was a much better contact hitter. This year, his contact numbers have plummeted. This is a big reason here. His contact in the zone, 10.5% worse than last year. Chase contact percentage, 14.5% worse than last year. You just can't. You can't do this. You can't do this. You can't. If he's on your fantasy roster right now, I hats off to you, because you should just drop him. He also won't play versus lefties. He's just slashing 111, 200, and 278 versus them. And, team context there, I'm sure Cleveland is, reluctant to send him down to get some more tutelage and stuff, but the team is winning, and they really need to give him every chance to establish himself in the big leagues as a catcher. But as I mentioned before, he has no business being on a fantasy roster right now.
No, and damn, it's hard to underperform such modest expectations.
Yeah, it's bad. All right, next cold player. Maybe we're a little premature to talk about this dude today. He just hit 2 homers over the holiday weekend, but it was his first homer since April 29th. And he really hasn't completely crawled out of that May slump too. He hasn't stolen a base in 19 games either. We're talking about shortstop CJ Abrams with the Washington Nationals. What's contributing to his cold slump here?
Yeah, it's something else. Who didn't love the start to his season though, right?
Yeah.
We saw a breakout last year, and remember, this dude was the centerpiece of the deal that took Juan Soto from the Nationals over to the Padres. He's got an amazing prospect pedigree. Early this year, through the first 29 games, he was hitting 280, getting on base 35% of the time, had a 927 OPS, 7 home runs, which we were not expecting, especially over that short of a time frame. Another 6 doubles, 4 triples. drove in 18, scored 23, and stole 7 bases with half as many walks as he had strikeouts. It's pretty damn good. Good enough to be the number 10 overall hitter and the number 5 shortstop. And you're thinking, damn, life is good. I got shortstop on lock. CJ Abrams is the truth. I'm cool. And then the 6-month grind of the fantasy baseball season showed its face. Over the next 19 games, 221, a 238 on base, just a 536 OPS, 1 home run. Granted, he had, a couple over the weekend, 3 doubles, just drove in 6, only scored 8 with 1 walk and 17 strikeouts. The 177th overall hitter, the 33rd overall shortstop. What the hell happened?
Right.
Number one, it was a drop in his quality of contact. His barrel rate went from 9.8% down to just 3.3%, and his overall contact rate dropped by 11%. Zone contact rate by 8. No good. No good. Bueno. We had a decrease in his pull rate. And look, he's not somebody who's going to be hitting a lot of opposite field home runs until he fills out a little more. He's only got 3 in his whole career, right? So if he's generating power, it's going to be to the pull side. And he's swinging at more pitches out of the zone and making contact with fewer of them. And look, pitches outside of the zone already, you generally don't get the greatest quality of contact with them. He's somebody, though, I think he's going to turn it around. We talked about the couple home runs over the past couple days. And look, this dude's got a 70 grade hit tool and well above average speed. That means shorter slumps, right? He was on pace for 40-40 early this year, but anyone with half a brain knew that shit wasn't going to hold up. But that doesn't mean, he can't give you an amazing rest of the year. And look, when you look at his quality of contact from last year, it was a big shock. He hit 18 out of the yard. That said, because of the hot start that he's had, 25 home runs could be in the cards this season. He's locked into the leadoff spot. Lane Thomas is back from injury, and Eddie Rosario is on fire. This Washington Nationals team is a team that's got a little bit of dog in them as well. They're scrappy, and they'll fight for all 27 outs, and they need that table setter to be successful. I think he's going to turn it around. I think it's going to be sooner rather than later, and your patience is going to be rewarded. I absolutely love me some CJ Abrams this season.
Yep, absolutely. We got a question in the chat from Fantasy Football Dude. He's going to lose out on Chapman and Garcia, waiting for Bregman to get it going. How much longer should I wait?
Bregman has been on fire. So I don't know if you meant somebody else.
Like just recently?
Yes.
No, because
unless I'm completely...
He's only got 4 homers on the year, but he's
there's more than
slashing
that.
206, 273, 317. His hard hits. Yeah, it's not beautiful, but especially he wants to get it going because it's a contract year for him.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, he's too good to not get it going.
Yeah, I think the fact that he doesn't strike out very much. His walk rate's very average. He's somebody I would probably keep waiting personally.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you got to hold on. Michael Garcia has been nice, and Chapman is fine, but Alex Bregman is the best of that bunch. I'd have sworn he had been on fire, and I guess I'm just an idiot. Yeah, he's the number 19 third baseman this month.
Yeah.
Over the past couple weeks, what the hell is he? I don't know. Let's see here.
Not what you like.
Number 10. So, I mean, not great, not awful.
Right.
It's good enough to stay on the team. I guess. For now, anyways.
Great question, Fantasy Football Dude. Thanks for joining us tonight. Always here to answer your questions. We love that part.
Sure. So, Kyle, I've always kind of wondered how somebody could go from being the NL Player of the Week in early April to being tied for 100th among outfielders in May. What the shit is going on with Lourdes Gurriel?
Oh man, he's not the man anymore. In the month of May, he's just outfielder 89 in fantasy. He's down over 100 points in his ex-WOBA. out of 184 qualified hitters in May so far. His on base, he's just 136 out of 184 qualified hitters. His slugging's 143rd, walk 154th. He's just got 1 home run, 6 runs scored, and 6 RBIs in May. On the season, 47 hits, does have 10 doubles, 6 homers, 29 RBIs, 25 runs, and 3 stolen bases. He's slashing just 234, 277, 373. That puts his OPS at 650. That is not good for a guy who has a career 780 OPS. His strikeout rate is 18.8. It's about 4% better than league average. Walk rate is not very good. It's a few percent less at 5.2. He's in the bottom 14% among hitters in the league. Looking at his Statcast, I'm just seeing the land of the basically a Smurf village. It's full of blue and it's not good. He's above average in hard hit rate, whiff rate, and the aforementioned strikeout rate. Everything else below average. He's not hitting the ball very hard this season. Last year he was versus last year he was 1.2 worse in exit velocity, 1.6 worse in barrels, and 4.4% worse in hard hit rate. His slugging and expected slugging are also both worse year over year, with his slugging down a whopping 90 points from last season. How is he distributing these batted balls? He is hitting way more fly balls and less line drives. Remember, hitters are definitely more successful when they hit line drives. You reach base around 70% of the time with line drives, compared to about 25% of the time with fly balls or ground balls. His pop-up percentage on the season, too, is high at 6.2. It's a little bit high for him. It hasn't been that high since his sophomore season. It's just not getting good contact on the ball. Looking at some of his tape, his bat is not moving, up through the hitting zone. You don't want a straight up. I'm not talking about like a total uppercut, but when you move the bat on a more upward path through the hitting zone, it usually leads to more line drives and fewer weak pop-ups like we're seeing with him. Is still getting very good contact in the zone. He is at 87%. Outside the zone, he's 60%. Both numbers are far above average. His BABIP, he's got some bad luck on that. It's below average at 265. He was also trending. He was below average last year as well, after being much better. In the mid 300s, low to mid 300s in his first 5 years in the league. So last year, and in his career too, but last year you saw it, he was a very streaky hitter last season. For instance, he hit 175 through the months of June and July, which is 6 homers and 11 RBIs. And this season, we've already seen the streaky side to him. Like Matt mentioned, he popped off at the beginning of the season. In March, April, he was slashing 254, 300, 426. He had 6 doubles, 5 home runs, 22 RBIs, and 19 runs. Dude was fantasy outfielder number 9 through April. And then May came. He's still, it's a good offense there. He's still a guy that can provide some occasional pop, but his overall impact right now in fantasy lineups, remains limited. I think you should kind of view him, as a situational player right now, best utilized when matchups favor his power hitting capabilities. Yeah. All right, time to shit on someone. I love it. We were just talking about this guy with James' question a little bit earlier in the show. So this guy's the MLB's smallest player. He's a villain in 29 MLB stadiums and the face of the Houston Astros. We're talking about Cheater McCheaterson, Jose Altuve. Matt, tell me about Mr. Cheater Face. Yellow. Hello, I think you're on mute, bud.
Yeah, there we go.
All right.
Yeah, he's somebody who's been incredibly consistent over the last we'll call it decade and change, aside from a couple injury shortened campaigns. And we thought we were getting the same thing this season, right? He was a top 15 fantasy batter, the number 2 second baseman the first month and change of the season. That was a 349 average on base over 40% of the time, a 987 OPS, 16 extra base hits, including 7 home runs. And we're used to seeing the power from him there. 24 runs scored, chipped in 7 bases. He was hitting the ball with some authority as well. He had a nice 9.6% barrel rate. And he was pulling the ball like crazy. He always does, and putting the ball in the air at a career best rate. That's how he generates his power. When you're 5'6", 130 pounds, your shit ain't going Oppo Taco very often. As a matter of fact, he has 0 extra base hits to center or right field this year. He had a 17.5% home run to fly ball rate, which was in line with his career norms. Now, granted, he was also helped by a 364 BABIP, but his career mark's 329, and he posted a 348 mark last season, so it wasn't, too far out of the norm. And then, in the beginning of May, he faced Logan Gilbert, the Seattle Mariners, and he went 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts, and that shit has been downhill from there. 216 average, 258 on base, a 565 OPS, just 4 extra base hits, 2 home runs, 8 RBIs, scored 10, just 1 steal with 21 strikeouts and 3 walks. And you wonder, well, is that bad? Well, that's good enough to be the 121st overall fantasy hitter. Surprisingly enough, a couple spots ahead of Mookie Betts, and the number 20 overall second baseman. That is one hell of a switch to flip. He's at a 262 BABIP for then. 262 BABIP since then. His strikeout rate nearly doubled. His walk rate more than halved. That's not good. The quality of contact worsened across the board. And let's be real, it wasn't amazing to begin with. His 3% barrel rate is a third of what it was. His exit velocity and hard hit rate were also down. And he was hitting more green balls. He was hitting more ground balls and fewer fly balls. And as a result, the home run to fly ball rate took a dip down to 9.5%. He no longer has the sprint speed to leg out the hits that he used to. He's being more aggressive at the plate too, swinging at more pitches, but he's making considerably less contact. And he's chasing more out of the zone. His swinging strike rate jumped from a fantastic 7.5% to 12%. And pitchers have been more aggressive against him as well, too. His first pitch strike rate jumped 16 points to just over 76%. And why is that important, you ask? Well, look, 92.7% of first pitch strikes are either strike one or an out, meaning less than 8% of first pitch strikes become hits. At the end of the day, this dude is in just a good old-fashioned slump. He's going to come out of it, but keep in mind he's 34 and he failed to play 140 or more games in 3 of the last 5 full seasons. He's going to be okay. When you have a hitter this age, you're going to start to see more and more of this, especially as his bat speed slows down. I know we don't have all the data over seasons past, but when you are as small as he is, and certainly not a hulking guy to begin with, and you reach 34 years old, that bat is going to slow down. So just be patient. He's going to work his way through it. I don't think he's going to flirt with 30 home runs anymore at this stage in his career, but I do think, he's going to get you 20 home runs. He's going to drive some in. The Houston offense is not terrible, so he's going to score. Just weather the storm here.
Yeah. Okay.
So, hitting a home run in 5 straight games is certainly one way to open the eyes of the fantasy baseball world. And then hitting one in the following 6 weeks is a great way to close them again. Kyle, if you rostered Michael Busch, how would you be feeling right now?
Oh, not good. I mean, I like the team context. That's a good offense, but he is struggling right now. In the month of May, he's the 34th rated or 34th fantasy first baseman, down 171 points in his ex-WOBA this month. In that same period, among 184 qualified hitters, batting average, he's 178th. On base, he's 117th. Slugging, he's 159th. And he struck out over 42% of the time with just 1 homer that you mentioned and 4 RBIs. That's very, very ugly. I suppose his saving grace has been his 15% walk rate and 11 runs scored during that time period. But otherwise, that's about it. And you remember, he started out hot, in March and April. He was the number, 7, 8 I think, fantasy first baseman the first month of the season. So it's going through a slump. Every hitter goes through a slump. It happens. Started the season batting 6. He rose up to clean up in his hot April, but now he finds himself right back down in the bottom third of the order. On the season, he just has 37 hits, 8 doubles, a triple, 7 homers, 21 ribbies, and 27 runs. His strikeout rate that I mentioned before in the month of May, but on the season, it's 35.2. It is the 4th worst in the majors. Disgusting. Walk rate is good. He's a couple percent above average at 10.4, and he has above average BABIP at 333. So getting some luck there with the batted balls he's putting in play. His StatCast, while he has an excellent barrel rate of 12.4, he hasn't really been much of a hard hitter. His hard hit rate, exit velo are both in the bottom 35% in the league, and his expected slugging is just 7 points higher than his actual slugging. So really not much gains there, not much movement to work with there, where we expect he's going to slug even more. His expecting batted average is gross. It's at 209. He's in the bottom 9% in the league of that. And he doesn't chase too much at 26-1, but he is looking like King Mr. Whiff on the season. His whiff rate is 33.9. It's the 8th worst in baseball among 157 qualified batters. His line drive is flat with the league, but he is below average on his ground ball rate. He is just hitting way too many of them. A lot of them are weaker contact as well. Fly ball rate is pretty high at 34. That's 10.5% more than league average. And really just not the greatest getting ball on bat either. Contact in the zone is 7.5% worse than MLB average. And contact and when he chases is over 12.5% worse as well. In a small sample, he was with the Dodgers last year. He got traded to the Cubs this year, but he struggled with fastballs last year with the Dodgers. It was a small sample size. I think it was only 30 at bats or so, but he batted just 118 with a slugging of 147 against the fastball. This year, much improved. Fastball batting average 253, slugging's up to 451. I think this is a guy that will work through this slump. I think he can be a solid fantasy guy, even with his streakiness, but that strikeout rate must improve. Get yourself down to 29% or something, which is still bad, but much improved by his standards. But in fantasy, he has the potential for a solid batting average, 25 plus homers, and plus it helps he's eligible at a couple positions as well. All right. Okay. One more cold guy. So joining Michael Busch in the bad whiffs club is the super talented phenom shortstop from Cincinnati, who's in his own slump this month after started the season kind of in a slump, got hot again, and now he's right back in the cold. Tell us about Elly De La Cruz, Matt.
Yeah, this guy, I don't think anyone has had as much of a fire and ice, hot and cold season as he had. You know, you mentioned he started cold and then caught fire and he's really cooled off again. And look, this goes back even to draft season. He was one of the most divisive players that people were talking about at that time, because there's such amazing potential and such amazing potential, right? He can do really well or really piss poor. But still, at the beginning of the month, he was, hitting 288, getting on base almost 40% of the time. Had gone yard 8 times and had doubled another 7 times. He driven in 19, scored 27, and stole 19 bases. Yeah. The BABIP was high at 375, but still he posted a 336 mark last year. And that makes sense, though, because he hits the ball damn hard and he's the fastest player in baseball. The strikeout rate was high as well, but he was walking almost 13% of the time. And when he walked, it was essentially like an automatic double because his ass was taken off. In that time frame, though, he was the number 1 overall hitter in fantasy with both shortstop and third base eligibility. And guess what happened then? He had a little 0 for 4 with 3 strikeout game against Baltimore. And then from May 4th onward, it's just, oh my God. Hitting below the Mendoza line, getting on base less than 30% of the time, only 4 extra base hits with 1 home run, only scored 9 runs. He still stole 12 bases, which is great. But still, I mean, we're talking about the number 87 overall hitter, the 18th shortstop, and 13th third baseman. Unless you're in an incredibly deep league, like that's not what you want to see. Now, obviously, you're not going to bench him. He's Elly De La fucking Cruz, right? But the walk rate.
I should have put that name in the banner. I should have put that in the banner.
No kidding. The walk rate's down a bit. His strikeout rate is up a bit to 34.4% here over the past couple weeks. But his quality of contact is the massive driver of this slump. He started out with an exit velocity a little over 93.5 miles an hour, a 16.7% barrel rate, and a 50% hard hit rate. Since exit velocity is down to 88.7, just a 4% barrel rate and a 40% hard hit rate. But really, look, that whole team took a shit. They lost 17 out of 21 games. And this guy, for what he is not, is a contact hitter. His 66.6% contact rate overall is the second worst in baseball. And that's the most fundamental thing you need to do, right? Hit the ball with the bat. He has seen improvement in his chase rate, though, and pitch recognition year over year. His chase rate was bottom 25% last year. And this year, he's a little bit better than mid-pack. You'll take those gains every day of the week. He's been a little more passive. He's not swinging at as many pitches in the zone. And when he is making contact, he's putting the ball on the ground a lot. That is not inherently a bad thing. The ground ball rate has a higher expected batting average than a fly ball, but doesn't typically result in extra base hits. And it almost seems like a dude can't win right now. He's got only 4 hits in his last 43 plate appearances. This dude is still a young hitter. He's just 22. He's still figuring things out. The truth lies somewhere between these two samples that we talked about. It's going to be a bumpy ride, but he's the kind of player that can win you weeks. And when he's on, he can win you multiple weeks in a row. And considering what you had to give up to get him, either a very, very early round pick or you were shelling out that auction dough to get him on your team, you're certainly not going to move him because you're not going to sell low on him at this point because, it doesn't get much lower than what he's doing. So you got to wait it out. And this is something that when you drafted him, you needed to be cognizant of, is that this shit ain't going to be smooth sailing. We're not talking about Mike Trout here. We're talking about a kid who is still figuring a lot of shit out.
Yep. Heck yeah. Good stuff. All right. Well,
it was fun.
So yeah, it was good stuff. So I want to talk about the listener league standings, just because I know we got a few guys in here that are watching that are in the league. Still at number 1. Actually, we're tied at first. We got me, Scions, and Loud Boy tied at. Loud Boy is just first year at fantasy baseball, and he is just doing very, very well. Green Bastards is the team there at the bottom. That is my co-host Matt at 2-6 this season. I noticed you've used the most waiver fab dollars so far in this league, and you're still 2-6. Any comment on that, sir?
Yeah, shit didn't work out. Still scoring points though. I mean, that's the goal.
You are 5th in scoring, so I think some things will turn around for you, but got a little bit of hole there to climb out of.
Maybe a little.
Yeah.
So of these dudes that we talked about today, which dude who's slumping do you think breaks out first?
Probably Elly, just because he's just super talented.
He is.
It is. I think when you have that, just athletic ability and talent that he does, you're able to climb out of those slumps easier. And we've seen him do it already a month ago, climb out of one. So I think that's him all the way.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree too. And like we talked about both with CJ Abrams and again with Elly, when you're fast, you have the option to leg shit out.
Yeah.
Vlad Guerrero ain't legging shit out.
Nope.
I mean, he's lost a little bit of weight. Good for him. Take things a little bit more seriously. But still, no, he is not beating out ground balls. That's
Nope.
that's not his game.
Absolutely.
So of the dudes who are just on an absolute tear right now, which one surprises you the most at how things are going?
Probably Rooker.
Thanks.
He's probably the only name of this. He's the one of the 6 on there you don't really know very much. I mean, out of what? Judge, Castellanos, Seager, Chapman, Guerrero, Rooker. Who are you picking? Who don't you know? But
Sure.
with some of his underlying stats, I don't think it'll last at all.
Yeah, he's like that 1990s prototype power hitter. He's going to give you the 30 home runs, but damn, is it going to be painful to get there?
It sure is. And remember, in the world of fantasy sports, today's hero can be tomorrow's zero, and vice versa. So don't get too attached to streaky hitters, unless of course you like crying into your pillow every night. Drop a comment below on which player made you pull your hair out this week, and maybe, just maybe, we'll form a support group. Don't forget to like and subscribe to get that fantasy content you love. Hit that notification bell so you never miss us. We'll see you Thursday night at 7 for 2 start pitchers and waiver ads for week 11. Have a great evening, everyone. Stay